Hello everybody and welcome to our first Friday Flicks meeting of 2021. Our movie for this month is A Bear Named Winnie, released in 2004. This is a friendly spoiler warning for everyone. Discussion past this point and in the comment section of the posted video will contain spoilers for the film. If you haven't watched it yet, copies are available to view through the Hoopla database. The film tells the story of Winnipeg, the small black bear cub who was purchased by Lieutenant Harry Colburn in 1914 at the beginning of World War I. Quickly becoming a mascot for the unit, Winnipeg travels with them to England for training, but when the unit is to be sent to France on the front lines of the war, Winnipeg is left behind in the London Zoo for her own protection. At the zoo, she's visited by hundreds of children, quickly becoming one of their most popular exhibits, and inspiring one of the world's most famous teddy bears. Her story has been chronicled before in several children's books, including Winnie, the Remarkable Tale of a Real Bear, and Finding Winnie. Our movie begins in 1926 at London Zoo, as a young boy visits Winnipeg in her exhibit and wonders how she received her name. Realizing that it must have been quite a story, the movie flashes back to 1914 and a hunter in the woods. After the hunter shoots an adult bear, he realizes that she had a cub with her, and unable to shoot the baby bear, takes it back to the town of Winnipeg with him. At that same time, a train carrying soldiers from the Canadian Expeditionary Force on their way to a training center in Valcartier, Quebec, stops in Winnipeg to allow the soldiers a chance to stretch their legs. Lieutenant Harry Colburn, a member of the Veterinary Division, disembarks from the train and walking through the town stumbles upon the young bear cub. Finding out that she is to be killed, he offers to buy her for $20 and names the young cub Winnipeg after the town he found her in. However, nobody in town was willing to take on the responsibility of raising a bear cub, and Lieutenant Colburn is forced to take her on the train with him. The other members of the unit are quickly enchanted by the antics of little Winnipeg, and she becomes a mascot for the men. The unit's commander, Colonel Barrett, objects to Winnipeg as a mascot, believing that she belongs out in the wild. However, as Lieutenant Colburn continues to raise Winnipeg, bottle feeding her and training her, it becomes more and more apparent that she has become dependent on human contact and would be unable to survive on her own in the wild. When the unit is transferred to England, Lieutenant Colburn smuggles her across the ocean in Barrett's footlocker. However, when the unit is to be sent to the front lines in France, he quickly realizes that a war zone is no place for a bear. In order to protect Winnie from the dangers of the front line, Lieutenant Colburn is forced to leave her behind at the London Zoo, asking that they care for her and provide her with human contact, promising that he will come back for her after the war is over. Despite Lieutenant Colburn's assertion that Winnipeg is no ordinary bear and needs to be around people constantly for her well-being, the zookeepers believe that as a wild animal she should be kept separate and away from people in order to protect both her and visitors to the zoo. Finding herself cut off from the comfort of human companionship, Winnie begins to slowly decline in health, refusing to eat or move around. Zookeepers fear that she will soon die, but are unable to force her to eat anything. When the young girl attempts to get closer to Winnie's cage, she accidentally falls into the exhibit and knocks herself unconscious. She begins crying out for help and manages to open her cage door and head down to the little girl to try and offer her comfort and get her to wake up. The young girl's mother and zoo staff race towards the exhibit, believing that Winnie is attacking the girl, only to find them cuddling together, playing. Realizing that Winnie is indeed tame, the zoo begins to allow her more and more contact with both staff and visitors. Lieutenant Harry Colburn endures the horrors of war serving in France at the front lines. One particular afternoon, German soldiers break through the lines and ambush his unit. In the ensuing fight, both Harry Colburn's friends and the horses he had been caring for are killed. As the scene of the battle fades away, we move ahead 2 years to the Princess Adelaide Military Nursing Home, where we find that Harry Colburn has been staying. The nurses reveal to Colonel Barrett when he visits that Harry has been in a deep depression, refusing to get out of bed, not eating, and only speaking one name, Winnie. The nurses and staff of the military nursing home assume that Winnie is Harry's sweetheart or wife, but Colonel Barrett instantly recognizes the name as Little Winnipeg. Heading to the zoo, Barrett quickly retrieves Winnie and brings her back to the convalescent hospital where she is reunited with Lieutenant Colburn. Not only does she help Lieutenant Colburn find himself again, but she also proves therapeutic for other patients. Although Lieutenant Colburn fully intends to take Winnie back home to Canada with him, when he goes to the zoo to retrieve her, he sees her interacting with the children and realizes that she's made a home for herself there and has touched so many lives. Deciding that he can't take her away from his home, he asks that the zoo keep Winnipeg there, and he leaves her, promising that he will visit again. The movie flashes back to our starting point of 1926 with the little boy clutching a gold teddy bear as he talks to his father about what Winnipeg's story must be. He announces that he has decided to change his bear's name from Edward to Winnie. I'm sure you all have guessed by now, but that little boy and his teddy bear are the real-life Christopher Robin Milne and Winnie the Pooh. Winnipeg and Lieutenant Colburn's story is a true one, and she really did live in London Zoo for several years, where she was visited by hundreds of children, including Christopher Robin, who would step into her enclosure and feed and pet her. Young Christopher was so taken with Winnipeg that he decided to rename his teddy bear Edward to Winnie in her honor. His father, A. Milne, would write down stories of Winnie's adventures in the 100-Acre Woods, which became international bestsellers and started the global phenomenon of Winnie the Pooh. Multiple statues have been erected in honor of the memory of this sweet little bear who didn't seem to realize that she actually was a bear. As a lifelong fan of Winnie the Pooh, both from the Milne books and Disney's movies, I really loved watching this movie. It was fascinating to see Winnipeg's story brought to life and how she touched the lives of so many people. Reading through some of the reviews on this movie, it struck me that most people seem to find it to be a solid middle-of-the-road film. It's not considered to be any great classic or technical achievement, but the story is so sweet and touching that it also cannot be described as bad. Although this film does not seem to have gained a wide audience yet, I highly recommend checking it out through the Hoopla database. It's a wonderful family film. Rather than providing a more realistic documentary style on the horrors of World War I, the movie instead chose to show one of the lighter moments, highlighting the close bond between Lieutenant Colburn and Little Winnipeg. While this may seem like a small thing, it was that bond that brought her to the unit, where she inspired and provided comfort for the men as their mascot, and then to the London Zoo, where she charmed and entertained children for years. As inspiration for Winnie the Pooh, her legacy continues as she touches the lives of children and adults every day, providing a little bit of hope and brightness in an oftentimes dark world. But that's just my 2 cents, and I really want to know what you guys are thinking. Were you a fan of the film? Did you know Winnipeg's story before watching it? Are you a fan of Winnie the Pooh? And if so, do you prefer the Milne version or the Disney version? Please leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section of this video. I can't wait to hear from you. And don't forget to stay tuned to the library's social media and website for more upcoming programs. We've got some great programs coming up, including story times, tutorials, and more. See you next time.